one of our really sort of milestones over the last 12 months has been sort of our acquisition and the sort of integration of Thunderbite in. So, as I said, fantastic with Lisa here, John and Mark. So what we're going to do is I could spend hours here giving my perspective of why it's such a super synergy or that, but as opposed to listening to me, what I'm going to do is get 25 minutes with John, and I have to look what his title is, VP of Sales, Gamification and Loyalty. And we're going to have sort of a Q&A around some of the areas and then sort of leave it open to the floor from that side of it. So with that, I'd like to call on John Smith. So part of what we're going to cover today is the whole demystification, because there's a lot of talk about free-to-play, loyalty, gamification, what it is, what it isn't. So we're going to go through that. But the first thing I want to ask John, that actually everyone really wants to know is that your real name? Because seriously, is that your real name, or is it an acronym, or have you a previous life we should know about?
No previous life, but that is my real name. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The business card definitely getting longer. I think Hussein's, I need a sandwich board next time. It's getting longer and longer as a business.
More sales, bigger sandwich board. We'll get that. Yeah. But so we'll move on. So I've had the pleasure, and we've had the pleasure of knowing John and the team from a quiet night together 3 years ago in Barcelona, that at SPC. And my first question to you is, why are you still talking to us, and why did it seem a very good synergy and partnership between Thunderbite and XP from your perspective?
Well, the first reason why we're still here is because you guys paid the bill in Barcelona, so that was the first thing to say. I think the biggest thing for us, why Thunderbite wanted to team with XP, is quite simple. The synergy is absolutely perfectly aligned in how we want to move going forward. We at Thunderbite hit a crossroads in terms of where we were. We build a range of different free-to-play games and mechanics. We hit a crossroads in so much as we knew we could only get so much data and so much content from the operator. We wanted to hook in more real-time data, look at real-time triggers and real-time rewards. So syncing with Extreme Push was just a perfect marriage, really. Yeah,
and again, we didn't pay Addy before to mention free-to-play and gamification, or Joanne to mention real-time. But when we look at it, it's elements like this. So why is the synergy and unification of CRM and gamification or loyalty, why is that important to an operator if they're hearing it? Like, what is the importance?
The biggest thing really from what we've found is, and we have some of the Thunderbite team here, so they can probably allude to it in more detail than I can, but we would find that when we would have the sort of wash-up meetings with operators, they would talk a lot about the results and talking about where they take their data from free-to-play, lift it out, physically put it somewhere else within CRM, give it to a BI guy to try and check the data, work out, did that work, yes or no. Everything was very manual. There was no unification whatsoever. So now, when we start talking about, again, and Joanna mentioned it earlier, we talk about real-time rewards, real-time instant gratification of bonuses. It's all under one roof now.
Yeah, and again, when we look at it from our side, it was marrying up the real-time and data and everything from the gamification and loyalty, bringing the data all together and getting a more personalized experience. So when we look at it, it's the way the market's going and really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's real-time rewards, real-time content, but it's personalizing that information as well. So it's finding out what a player wants from a free-to-play game, finding out what rewards they're interested in, and how we can deliver those to them in real time.
Superb. All right, so I'm going to take a step back because we talk about loyalty, retention, free-to-play, gamification, right? People lump retention and loyalty in the same bucket. Can you tell us or outline from your perspective experience of working with clients, such as, again, we talked about it earlier, William Hill, Kaiser and Rank, like, what are the key differences when I look at it between retention versus loyalty?
When we talk to operators about real-time, when we talk to operators about retention campaigns, a lot of it is simply one mantra, which is giving a player reason to return back to site. What is there on site for me to do today that there wasn't there yesterday, or what was there today that there wasn't there last week? So it's finding those finding those differences or finding those wow moments, as Tommy likes to say, those wow moments, those surprise and delight moments that a customer isn't expecting to see when it comes to a retention campaign. When we look at William Hill, for example, they have Scratch of the Day, which is a Thunderbite campaign. That's been live on their site now for over 5 years and hasn't moved. Because now players, to contradict myself, players know where it is. It's not changing. The offers are changing, the content's changing, and the prizes and the bonuses are changing within it. But the actual free-to-play game itself hasn't moved in 5 years.
So you're saying that William Hill have deployed for 5 years continuously with yourself?
Yeah, without missing a day.
Well, there's proof point, if I was looking at it. If I take a step then as well into what we call the realm of gamification and that. So from your side, it's huge on everyone's lips, what it is, what it isn't. Can you give us a perspective, why has it become so important? What is it? And importantly, what does it add from a player engagement strategy or perspective when you're seeing it?
Every operator is looking for that something different. They're looking for something which is going to give their players, again, why would they choose those over the other bookie down the road? So they're looking for something which is going to be able to give my players, again, a reason to return for retention, but also get them to stick around on site and give them those surprise and delight moments. So, for example, we built something with Superbet where it's missions, levels, achievements, points shop, points redemption, still segmenting it with customers. So giving certain customers certain different bonuses or certain different levels that they have to achieve. But the beauty is it's not stick and print. The operator can decide and can structure exactly everything that they want to do. So again, they can decide on whether it's a sports bonus we want to give away or whether it's a casino offer we want to give away, and they can tailor that at any given time. So Saturday afternoon, once the football is finished, they might decide to want to run a level within the gamification, which is talking purely about pulling players to casino. So from a cross-sell marketing objective, it's absolutely perfect.
And one of the points, and hugely that I learned in the last 6 months from talking to yourself and the team, is sort of the education around gamification. So in your experience when you're talking to operators or people, is there a lot of education in it of what gamification is and isn't, or how do you see it? So I take a step back. People know and understand CRM, say a single customer view, real-time engagement, that. But when you're talking about gamification, is there a lot of education, or how do you see the marketplace?
Yeah, there's still a little bit of confusion around what defines as gamification. So last week at G2E, had a conversation with a potential client around, they said, I want to gamify, or I want some gamification products on our website, and it was a daily retention, spin the wheel. Now, there's an argument to say, is that gamification, yes or no? To me, I would say no. I would say that's more of a retention piece. True gamification, as I said, is more to do with giving players missions, tasks, achievements, points. And there's several different companies out there that run pure out-and-out gamification. But it's also giving players and the end player the choice of what they want to do. So if you think about Candy Crush, for example, as a mobile app, everybody knows that you have to complete level 3 before you get to level 4. You get kind of stuck, you get kind of switched off from that, and you're more likely just to kind of go away and delete the app. If you think about putting it into sports and betting and gaming world, I want to leave it completely open so I could go straight to level 12, because in level 12 is something to do with my football team that I want to bet on, or I want to choose to do. Level 4 has something to do with poker, and maybe I'm not very interested in poker. So it's giving players that constant freedom of choice to decide where they want to go around the site, but still getting points and still being allowed to go and earn extra levels and unlock certain levels, which is going to give them, again, it's that stickability, giving them reason to stick around on site.
Brilliant. I suppose the biggest question I have of that is, did you sell them, whether it was gamification or loyalty?
Of course.
Good man, good man. If we move across then a little bit as well from an education perspective into the sort of loyalty retention programs, because again, we hear a lot about it. There's varying views of what it is, what it isn't, but they're not being utilised anywhere where they should be. Can you give us sort of all a distinction between loyalty retention from your perspective, or what you've seen when you're talking to people, and then how can they be adapted and integrated into a holistic customer journey? So 2 elements from that side.
Yeah, and I think part of the task is how to blend the 3 together, how to blend retention, how to blend gamification, how to blend loyalty all together to be part of a joined up marketing effort. A lot of brands seem to want to do one really well or two really well, but sort of miss the third piece. Loyalty programs and gamification tends to get sort of bundled together. I personally think it should be a little bit separate, but I think the two should dovetail together. Still think it's okay to have gamification where the customer knows if I do X, I'm going to get Y in return. The loyalty piece is obviously that's still that surprise and delight concept, still moving up the levels, still, for example, if you don't interact with us for a certain period of time, we may choose to move you down the level. And if you think outside of the industry, you think about airport or airline industry, loyalty programs, they do that very well. You move from gold to platinum. If you don't fly within a certain number of years, you lose your points and you come back down again. It's a little bit of a negative experience that Joanna talked about, but everybody understands how loyalty ladders sort of seem to move up and down.
Right, so we're going to go a little bit off script based on that answer. So we'll come back. So if I think of it that way, and it's, again, two phases. If you're talking to someone or somebody here is thinking about loyalty or retention or deploying it, like what are the some do's and the some don'ts that they should talk to somebody about or think about in their holistic unified journey?
The biggest don't is constantly pushing offers and trying to entice customers to keep depositing more and more and more, because again, people will switch off. Using gamification is a very low barrier to keep players to stick around on site. And gamification doesn't necessarily have to be always about, again, making a bet, making a deposit, spinning the new game of roulette, whatever it needs to be. It can be reading a blog. It can be watching a video. It can be watching an educational piece around a new slot game that's come onto site today. Steve from the Football Pools and I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago. Steve mentioned something that I absolutely, truly will echo the sentiments of. Within the next 3 to 5 years, free-to-play will have its own vertical on customer sites. It will be there for a whole number of reasons.
I support that. I think it's great.
For obviously, we talked about for daily retention, for gamification, for loyalty, but also for education. And education covers a multitude of things. So it's education around what to do. Players are very scared, very reticent, because, for example, if you've only historically been a sports customer, you may never have done anything on casino. You have no idea how to play a slot game. So you feel like you sort of, don't dip my toe in the water too far. I want to just see what this is all about. So using free-to-play as an educational piece will help that. Using free-to-play to promote responsible gaming or safer gaming will definitely help that as well.
So just again, on a question as you're talking through that, in your experience in dealing across multiple areas, have you an example or two where you've seen people doing it well? And again, obviously, whether with yourself or with anyone, but in general, people who are utilizing well in an overall strategy, again, around the education, around the responsible gaming or that?
Yeah, there's been a few, and I'll probably keep coming back to the same names, but William Hill did it really well. Bit of a cheap plug, I suppose, but we actually built him a free-to-play slot 5x3 slots game. 32 Red did exactly the same thing with Keith Lemon as their ambassador, so we built Keith's Lucky Lemons. And the idea there was really not to, there was bonuses giving it away at the end, but it was more about just showing people where the winning lines were in a slots game.
Okay. All right. So, and again, if I move it again, because there's sort of synergies and contradictions around retention strategies, gamification techniques, and how we look at it. What are the critical factors that determine to apply retention strategies and looking at vis-a-vis a gamification? Is it a unified approach, or is it's not a 1-0 game, but what should people be thinking about the reasons to do something for gamification versus retention?
Well, again, it's different horses for different courses. It depends on the market, it depends on the territory, it depends on the customer, it depends on the customer's behaviors, it depends on the marketing objective, right? So this isn't a one-size-fits-all approach. This is trying to get operators to understand more about their own customers and their own players. So what a brand in Brazil wants to do might be completely different from what a brand in the UK wants to do, completely different to what a brand in Italy wants to do. How they build their retention plan, how they build their gamification plan will be night and day. So there is no real answer to that. But what I would say is the unification should sit now within CRM. Historically, free-to-play has always sat as a acquisition piece. Anybody would mention free-to-play, that they were using that as a off-site, standalone third-party landing page in order to try and collect data. Now it's becoming more and more mainstream that it is a retention piece, it's a reactivation piece, it's a cross-sell piece from one vertical to another. So there is no real sort of one-size-fits-all in terms of what every operator in the room should do, but it's definitely just a structure around how we can include it as part of the CRM sort of omni-channel piece.
Grant, so sort of shifting gears slightly, because we've talked a lot from a operator perspective or your perspective, but ultimately it's about the individual player perspective, right? How, when we look at this, does this bring a better experience? How does it build a more unified loyalty with those players, that they think of your brand, or that, like, from a player perspective, what's in it for them, or how does it put them at an advantage?
It goes back to the panel earlier regarding personalized content. So if you're building a good gamification strategy, you're building a good loyalty strategy, and even a good retention strategy within that, it's finding out what your customers want to do. So if I'm building a free-to-play game which is going to give me a free bet at the end of the week, but it's on a free bet on something I'm not interested in, then it becomes a little bit pointless. So it's tapping into what is it I like to do. Will mentioned, maybe he likes to bet on cricket, or he likes to read cricket all the time. So if I'm reading cricket blogs on the site, I want to know, give me an offer based on cricket. Now, who's my favourite team? Who's my favourite player? What type of bet do I like to make? So it's tapping into all of those things, and it's personalised content. So it's a bit of a sort of cheesy thing to come back to, but it's the right message to the right player at the right time.
And does that then echo back to the start where we talked about a unified experience of the gamification, loyalty, CRM, real-time, personalized? And it goes back to, is that the holistic, one from an operator perspective, but two from a player perspective, that it's a win-win for both sides when you integrate them together?
Yeah, absolutely, because then you've got the perfect synergy. You've got a player who is expecting to receive some sort of notification, they're expecting to receive some sort of offer. They're not bombarded with this, because the last thing we want to do here is just constantly keep bombarding players to the point that they switch off. So it's finding that right balance between when to deliver these bonuses, these offers, and tailoring them to the right moment. So, for example, if there's obviously now we had the international break for football, and now we go back to the routine run-of-the-mill Premier stuff this weekend. As an Arsenal fan, do I then want to receive an offer coming through from Arsenal this weekend? Yes, of course I do, because I've not had my fix for 2 weeks. I don't want to be bombarded 3 times over the weekend. I just want something which is just going to be easy for me to consume, easy for me as a call to action, and ultimately finding that nice sort of happy balance from an operator and a user, and almost like a user experience, yeah.
And a good, you got dropped in, you're an Arsenal supporter there, so that was good. Liverpool here, just for those from that side. Then if we look at it as well from your side, and we talked about education, I mean, the right thing. From your experience in working, what would be some advice or best practices for people who are looking to enter this space for the first time, to dip their water in, to understand how do they do it holistically, how do they put it as part of their overall customer journey?
Biggest message would be work backwards. Find out what you want to do with those marketing objectives. So there's lots of stats banded around. So, for example, we could throw one out which is within, again, Superbet, so to keep plugging Superbet, 300,000 spins of our free-to-play wheel every single day. Now, that's a great stat, don't get me wrong. I need to have a conversation with Superbet about what that means. I need to have a conversation about what that means for them. If they take that wheel away, yes, they're losing 300,000 spins, but are they going to lose X amount of customers? Do they churn away? Do they go and do something else instead?
So then, again, that's going back to the fundamentals of any business around ROI, analysis, LTV, all those key metrics. While we're talking about ways to do it, it ultimately always aligns with the core key metrics of a business and how that impacts them, A, from customer loyalty, but B, from the business's key metrics.
Yeah, 100%. Again, we have lots of conversations with operators who say, I want a new free-to-play game. So why? Because my competitor's got one down the road. Yeah, so it's such a non-conversation in that respect. This should be more about what those KPIs are that you're looking for and what you want to do with them. So again, 32 Red, for example, use our scratch free-to-play scratch card game, and they get 60% daily increase. 2% increase of daily actives week on week. Now again, that's great. What I want to know is where did those players go next? Because it's a free-to-play, and obviously this is pre-extreme push join up, but where do they go after they finish playing that free-to-play game? Do they just exit the site and go? Or can we get them to stick around longer? can we get them to go and, if they've won 10 free spins on Rainbow Riches, for example, can we load Rainbow Riches and can we put those 10 free spins in there? So can we increase that session time? Are we therefore going to decrease the churn? Are we going to increase all the other sort of vital KPI stats that every CRM manager wants to try and pull?
So it's back again to the core business metrics and aligning, ensuring that everything we're doing is aligned with what we're trying to get.
Well, again, just a unified approach now. So it's no longer just, well, free-to-play is over here, CRM's over here.
Grand. One question I was just thinking there as well, which I've completely forgot, but I'll come back to. So we've talked to people and we're learning more and more. And what we're seeing and experiencing is that an always-on approach is the best way forward. Whereas some people are still of the belief, well, we do a game here and a game there. From your experience, like, which is the best approach for a company to deploy and why?
In my own personal experience, it depends on the operator. I've got people in the room, and I'm looking at a couple of them now. Andrew from Playojo constantly changes the games up. There'll be a wheel one month, it'll be an open the box the next month, and just constantly keeps changing them up because it's that surprise and delight. I know there's a free-to-play game there, but what is it?
But it's an always-on presence that's continuous, that aligns with the business, yeah?
Yeah, always on in terms of free to play, because again, I still want to know that my players have something there to come back to. And again, we'll go back to most of the operators we work with. They will say that probably a good 25 to 30% of a daily traffic from free to play is coming between midnight and 1 a.m. Players know where the game is. Yeah, it's Cinderella moment. It's Cinderella moment. You get 11:58, 11:59. You go to midnight and they go bang, and everybody starts to spin the wheel or scratch the card or open the box. Wow. So in terms of comms, the marketing teams go, well, there's nothing for me to do. It's done. Players know where they are. Now becomes the next part. How do we get them to stick around? What else can we give them?
Wow. Okay. All right. Before I open it up to the floor, and I don't want to put on any pressure, but last year's guest predicted the winners of the Soccer World Cup. We're not going the Rugby World Cup because Ireland are out and England are still in, and we're supporting them from that side. So, from your perspective, who's going to win the Cricket World Cup?
I'm not going cricket. I'm going rugby.
Go on. Who, if we had your €50 bet or £50 bet on the Rugby World Cup now, and I have to say, was Adam Palmerini in advance predicted Argentina winning it last year? So no pressure, because everyone is waiting to hear your answer, Adam. John.
I'm going South Africa.
South Africa. Okay, you heard it here first from John. All right, so we've tried to touch on some of the elements. From the floor, what questions, queries, any points of clarification that would be of interest from anybody there? You've had your session already, Will.
Session. Shut up, Will. No, John, I wanted to ask from, there's probably plenty of BD people in this room. When you're talking to new operators that are either entering the space as startups or maybe new operators to gamification, how are you guys talking about best in class? Is it, you kind of briefly touched on there's not a one size fits all, but do you guys have a templated set of things that are like, well, let's test here and see what your user base looks like because we know that journey will go there? Or is it kind of open slather to what a brand does? Does sometimes a brand come in and go, I want a fish game, and you're like, don't do a fish game, it's not going to work?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't go that granular with it, but there's definitely an A/B test has to happen. So whether you give players a gamified experience, whether you give them a free-to-play game, whether you give half of your players none, and then obviously test those results, but the actual game itself will still be open to brand, market, territory, user behaviours, because for example, a wheel, everybody knows, free-to-play spin to win wheel will work in most markets, but for example, a scratch card may well not, so you just still have to try and work out what's best for them. And again, to some degree, that's where you might switch your games. You still have an always-on free-to-play game, but you might switch it month to month to see which one works the best.
Over there.
Hey. How deep can free-to-play go down the value chain of gaming? Are you engaging with developers, with payment companies, with just the expanded pool of gaming?
It can go as deep as possible, really. There's no reason as to why it can't. We haven't done anything too much with payment providers yet, but we've worked with affiliates. We have worked with third-party. We have worked with gaming providers. Our claim to fame was that we once broke NetEnt. We made NetEnt fall over on a William Hill campaign. Yeah, shouldn't laugh about that, should I? But I do.
No, we won't laugh that. So I'm going to go a little bit off piste here, and because I know Tommy just in terms of the gamification. Is there any, from your perspective, a view?
I'd like to ask a question. However, here, just because myself and yourself have been talking about this for the last number of months, and we've seen other ways of doing free-to-play game mechanics and loyalty. You've been educating me on progressive, so it's one thing getting back to, and this is an educational place here, so, and it's something that I'm only still learning about. So we talk about getting, get the player days up every day, all right? But you've been talking about getting progressive with games, as in, getting them to do one thing, but staying on site and then influencing is what we would say in CRM to do something else. And why is that interesting for CRM and operators is because if you've got the data in the right place, you can influence them into something that's relevant to them. But it's something that is new in the industry because what free-to-play game mechanics have been doing for the last number of years is just getting them back to the site, getting that kind of wow moment, and then what? All right. Now you can get the stats from the CRM now. But how do you think about? What's your view and your vision of how and why progressive games can be better?
Progressive games really is ideal when it comes to not having to give bonus away every day for a start.
Which is hugely important.
Absolutely. Not to mention the cost, but just to mention that again, the player doesn't actually expect it. There's a bit of jeopardy in there as well. Giving that player reason to return, giving that player reason to come back and continue their streak. So we have a game, it's live with a couple of different operators where you start the game on a Monday. It's an enhanced scratch card. It has 90 squares. You turn over 3 or 4 per day. You come back tomorrow, you carry on where you left off. But to me, I like the idea of gamifying that even more, right? Incentivizing that even more. So if a player does something else on site as soon as they finish their free-to-play, I'm not always talking about making a deposit or making a bet, but do something else that you as the operator want them to do, then they get an extra turn or two. So it's just gamifying that and incentivizing that experience. Then when they get to the end of the week, you've given them you have given them a bonus. You've given them or even a surprise and delight extra bonus in the middle of the week there, somewhere they feel a bit more earned value sort of thing. They feel a bit more special within that. So progressive is definitely happening a lot more, but I don't think it will ever truly replace your daily retention. I just think it's, again, something to sit side by side with it. I think it's... Again, you will have players who, and Joanna mentioned it already before, you will have players who come in, want a bonus, and just disappear within 30 seconds. This is now giving that player reason to stick around. Again, we want you to go and read a blog. We want you to go and do something else on the side. We want you to go and watch another free-to-play video. We want you to unlock something else. If you do that, in return, we're going to give you an extra tile or two to open. But again, once you've finished opening all the tiles and you get that bonus at the end of the week, it still should be a personalised bonus. It should be personalised content based on what we know you already want to receive.
Yeah, and so back to the personalisation again.
Yeah.
Any other questions from anyone?
Yeah, sorry, I just have a question over here as well. I know you'd spoken about new games in relation to the actual operators and the businesses. In terms of new games, when we're looking at new users who may not know how to do spin the wheel and stuff, I know you touched on it previously. Do you have any insights into kind of best practices on how you introduce those games to people who may have never even thought about going into casino or doing any of those free-to-play games, and kind of how do you initiate that touch point and then help them to maintain and keep going? Because, I mean, personally, from my point of view, sometimes I'll look at the amount of instructions and I'm like, you know what, that's too much to read. I'm just going to leave it and just immediately exit. So I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
But again, that's where I think that's where something like video tutorials would sit within the free-to-play space. So the educational piece around this type of game, or even this type of free-to-play game, how to play it, what you should be looking out for, what to do. Now combine that and unify that with your CRM approach, with the various push notifications or email notifications that need to go out. Put the channels together, and all of a sudden you've suddenly got a very powerful story to tell.
Before designing one of these sort of, programs, loyalty programs, from my perspective, a really deep understanding of your customer base and which kind of cohorts you want to kind of, affect and influence is a key driver to designing that loyalty program. So that's sort of one, just to see if you agree with that.
Well, the easy answer is yeah.
Okay. Because rather than, a vanilla program that everybody can access, you kind of want something that pulls all the relevant levers for different cohorts, right? And then I guess the other one is around, once you've kind of implemented that, it's exit strategy, right? Because once it's in, it's really hard to take that away. So just your thoughts on that too.
In what way? Do you want to just help
Once
me
you've
out a
kind of
little bit further?
implemented, a loyalty program, and you've now got lots of free-to-play content, it's really hard to then kind of withdraw that, right? Because people are going there, they're expecting it, and you don't want to negatively affect your base. But at the same time, you're getting pressures from the finance team that, there's a big provision on the books.
Why would you want to withdraw it?
Well, cost challenges. It's marketing budgets is always the one that is under pressure first.
If you use it in the right way, you can definitely do some cost savings with free-to-play. We've seen many Thunderbite games where, I think William Hill's a perfect example again of this, they will drive the prizes and the bonuses in the office because they have their own proprietary game studio. They will drive players to that. So they're saving on paying third-party game providers huge royalties. So you can actually use it and drive it in a way. If you get the user flow right, you can actually make really good significant cost savings.
And the other bit, sorry, I'd add, and that was sort of where I went directionally on the understanding the business metrics and driving actual ROI and the customer loyalty. Like anything, if you're continuing to A, add value to the customer, and B, drive positive business outcomes, it's a win-win for both. And I think that's the bit where I was going about initially from the operator, but then to the personalized. If you're pissing someone off, then it's not going to be a good ploy.
Yeah.
So it's marrying both and dividing it with the business metrics.
Yeah, 100%.
Any final question at all? Are we good? No more Gunner supporters. There's 2 in London, yeah? All right, with that, listen, I know it's for me massively exciting, the whole integration. But John, I know we tried in 30 minutes to give a whistle-stop tour as we go through it. But thanks very much for your time, and look forward to working more with you.
Cheers, Rob. Thank you.